Welcome back to the Enlightened Misfits podcast. I am your host, Lauren, and in today's episode, I have Karen. She is an author, healer, and coach. Welcome, Karen. I'm so happy to have you here with us today.
Hi,
So, tell
Lauren.
us a little bit about your personal, share your personal journey with us on how you transitioned from being a pharmaceutical scientist to a healer and coach.
Okay. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I love what you do, getting that word out to everyone. Um, yeah, I guess I consider myself to have been a healer, pretty much most of my life with pharmaceuticals. I always tell people it's a great gig, it's a very well-paying job. It is a lot of times focused, as scientists, we focus on the altruistic part of it, but we also have the business end of it, and it is a business. And, they are there to make money. I always say pharmaceutical companies aren't necessarily there to make you well, they're there to make money. And hopefully they can make you well, during that time. But they like to have repeat customers. And so we got bought out actually by Bristol Myers Squibb. And it gave me a great opportunity to essentially retire from the company. They weren't going to use all the scientists, and that was fine because I had small children at home I was raising. And I thought it would be a really great time for me to take that leave and go and get some time to raise my children, which it was just a beautiful experience. Um, so I always consider myself someone that likes to serve. I spent time as a real estate agent, with a real estate team, and I was able to serve my clients there. I think it's important that or here on earth, we serve one another with whatever talents we have. Getting into more of a metaphysical thing, that's kind of an interesting story. I like to say I'm not an expert at many things in life, but I seem to be an expert at finding narcissists as spouses.
Don't all of us impass? Every single
Yes.
one of them. Every single person that's probably listening to this is like, oh, yeah, that's me. That's me. But no, yeah, 100%.
So being married to the father of my four children, I had decided this was not working out very well, and I wanted to end it. He was not so kindly to that suggestion, and so it got to a point where we ended it. I ended it by leaving. And so leaving with four children and nowhere to go. And it would be about a year and a half before we finally found our own home. So that was difficult. That was a difficult time for me and my children, and not knowing where you're going to be, sleeping, with in clients' homes, sleeping with fellow, real estate agents' homes. My children have slept on, basement floors. They've used walk-in closets as bedrooms. So it was a very difficult time. And my next relationship, I ended up with somebody who was a bit of a bully. And when you've got a bully you're getting away from, sometimes a bully coming into your life can deal with the last bully. So although it was helpful, I began to realize this is not gonna work out either. Um, my last husband, it was about giving the silent treatment. And so we could go for days or weeks or up to 2 months. And when I talk silent treatment to people, for people that have not experienced the silent treatment, it's not about, oh, we're not talking, we're just mad and we're not talking. It's about you don't exist to
Right.
that person.
Mhm.
That person will walk right by you. You can ask them a question and you are just air in that room. And that is one of the most horribly abusive things I think you can do to someone. So I was having one of my, silent treatments, And my oldest daughter used to say all the time, Mom, you just need to get out. You need to get out more. You need to go make some friends. You're isolated here. And so I saw on Meetup a just a mini healing, free mini healings. And I was like, well, that looks kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I went, and it was a free mini energy healing. It was all about 10 minutes. And I just sat there as this man was doing this healing and balancing my chakras. And I was like, wow, I feel like I could do this. And
Yeah.
just as I thought, wow, I could really do this, he said, no lie, he said, you could do this. And I was like, it is a symbol. It is a symbol from universe telling me this is a path I need to be on. And so the following day, my husband came walking through the kitchen, and I'm sitting there still waiting, getting the silent treatment. And I said out loud, I'm going back to school. And normally he would have just walked out the door and totally ignored me, but he stopped and he turned around and he said, for what? And I said, metaphysics. And he said, oh, and he turned around and walked out. I'm going to tell you, Lauren, I had to run over to my computer because I said, what the F is metaphysics? Okay. I had no idea what it was. So what is this? Here I am Googling it. And I was like, yeah, that's it. That's it. And so that's how my journey began, by studying metaphysics, becoming an ordained minister, meeting up with people from the healing touch profession, and going up to my third level of the healing touch program, which is just a beautiful, a heart-centered program, learning Reiki, and just studying, energy healing. And so I'd always done some sort of coaching way back, with I was in politics. And so I did coaching in politics, and I did some business coaching. And I thought, my gosh, this feels like home. It just feels like home. So
Yeah.
out of that horrible experience, that abusive, you don't exist, came this beautiful gift to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's kind of been the journey and how I got into that journey. But yeah, I had no idea what metaphysics even was.
Oh, I love that is so funny. Like it's thank you for I was gonna say thank you so for being so vulnerable and sharing your story. This is always I always tell people this is a safe space. The people that listen, they go through similar experiences. I've obviously went through similar experiences as well too. And all of our experiences are different, but we can relate on a soul level, I feel like. Especially to me, it seems like you went through some either narcissistic abuse or domestic violence or something like that, and I
Mhm.
feel like that is always near and dear to my heart because I lost my best friend to domestic violence, and I've always been a
Right.
huge advocate for domestic violence because I've also went through domestic violence, my in every different relationship. I always say to like I think I was saying this on a different podcast, maybe it was last week we recorded, but it hadn't come out yet. That you know my drug of choice, and this is may trigger people that have their drug of choice was drugs or something like that, was
Mhm.
always a relationship. So even now I can't get away from relationships, like not that you can get away from drugs or something like that, but you can kind of get away from narcissistic people. And like for me, I always feel like this whole lifetime I know it's about for one, starting the relationship with myself, right? It's like I
Right.
need to stop being so toxic to myself,
Mhm.
avoiding myself. I need to stop projecting myself. And when I started like learning about all of that stuff, like the awareness and the perspective and all that, and that's why I love human design, because it gives you that different perspective on. I was looking at the world from the outside in, like why is this happening to me, like why, instead of looking at it from the way that I feel like once you heal, it's like that victim mentality versus how am I attracting this, because I'm attracting these people to me,
Right.
even though nobody deserves that trauma, but that healing part is like our responsibility. So yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely can resonate with the silent treatment. It is probably the like I can 100% resonate. It's probably the hardest emotional abuse that I've ever had to go through. And it's
Right.
like now when people try to give me the silent treatment because their own awareness is so limited, then I'm
Mhm.
like, you okay? Like, you okay?
Right.
Like, what's going on? Talk to me. And then it's like,
Right.
you can't give me the silent treatment now because I'm going to force you to talk to me.
Right.
Not force people, but
Right.
it's
I
like,
know, I know what you're
you're
saying.
say something to me. Are you mad at me? Because if you're mad at me, why are you mad at yourself? Like, I always do that. And sometimes that triggers people, they're like, they don't really understand why I care so much, but a lot of it comes with, I feel their pain a lot. So it's like,
Right.
how can I help them? Because I wish
Right.
somebody asked me, like, why are you hurting? What's going on with you? Instead of,
Right.
me having to, it's not easy to speak about stuff like that. Or most of these people are not even aware that they're hurting so much inside. So the
Right.
average person is just so self absorbed and unaware. So it's
Yeah.
like, you can't, that's not their fault. They just don't, that's just what they chose, and it's
Right.
like until they decide, they have that moment of like, I don't want to hate myself anymore. I don't
Right.
want to be so miserable. That's when that time changes.
Mhm.
I always felt like I can save the world.
Yes.
I can change people. And that was my mentality when I was within these narcissistic and abusive relationships. Like, I can heal them, I can change them, because I was aware of my gifts my whole life. So it's funny that you say metaphysical, because it's like I felt like I came out of my mom and I like just knew everything. Not really, but
Right.
I know nothing. But like,
Mhm.
it's like that's kind of how it was. I was always very intrigued with the
Yeah.
esoteric and the things you can't see. And of
Yeah.
course, society kind of made me feel like I was crazy, or I'm, oh, this is not real. And it's just like, but I can see it, I feel it, I can hear
Right.
it. Like, I have all of this clairsentience. Like, I know this is true, and it's just
Right.
like, gosh, people are so, but then I realized, no, they're not. It's just society. Like, society, now I love that a lot of people are kind of coming to the awareness of this. There's something that people are hiding from us. Like, it's either, the government or it's the people. And it's just like, at the end of the day, like you said earlier, it's a business. The government is a business.
The
Every person that
business.
you work for is a business. Pharmaceutical companies are a business. And it's just like, I love that you had that awareness as well, because when people talk about stuff like that, I'm like, but it's a business.
Right.
So they
Right.
have to do that. Yeah, sure. I'm sure they put some things that help you
Mm.
heal, but you are the ultimate, like, the healer of your body. Like, yeah, sure, we
Absolutely.
need antibiotics, right? We need medicine. We do
Yes.
need that. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to bash any of the Western medicine, but
Right.
earth and, like, all of the holistic modalities, I'm like, you could go out in your backyard and eat dandelions, like, that we're told that they're weeds and you got to pull them up, like, you can, like, there's just so much more
Right.
awareness now that it's just like, wow, no wonder I tried to eat this when I was a kid, because it's like, you can.
Right. You can, and it's healing. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
no. But yeah,
So,
it's
can you tell us a little bit about your experience being a domestic violence survivor and how this has shaped your approach on helping others overcome their own trauma and pain?
well, I always tell people I would not be the healer I am today if I did not go through what I went through. Um, for me, it's very important. It was very important for me that people believe me, because some of the things that you deal with, it's crazy town. It's just crazy town. And people are like, "Are you kidding me? No, that never happened." I'm like, "No, it really, really." I had a conversation with somebody about a week ago, and I was explaining about the silent treatment and not talking to me for days or weeks or months. And he said, "Well, but why was he mad?" I said, "I don't know." He says, "But what did you do?" I said, I don't know. And for somebody that is in a relationship like that, you are constantly walking on eggshells. You don't know where to go, what to do. You don't want to upset any apple carts. And it can be nothing more than, hey, what you said to me was not really nice. That is enough. That's enough to just flip everything around, and next thing you know, you're not being talked to, you're not being acknowledged. Hey, what do you want for dinner? Silence. Do you want anything for dinner? Silence. Look right past you. And you get to a point as a victim of saying, I'm sorry, whatever it is I did, I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry. Tell me what I did. So, I mean, this is how crazy it gets.
Oh,
Tell me what I did so that I can apologize, so
right.
that we can go to some level of sanity.
Right.
And when these people are very good at manipulation and they look good from the outside. And it's like, oh yeah, she's totally nuts. She's totally nuts. So for me, it's very important that other, people that have been in these situations, other overcomers, for
Mhm.
me to say, I believe you,
Yeah.
because you walk away saying nobody's going to believe this. Nobody's going to believe that this actually went on. This is so insane. This is a made for TV movie that was,
Right.
made up in a in a room
You
with
paid a lot of
writers.
money. They
Yeah.
would pay people. I mean, I'm not making a joke about this, but yeah, you would get paid a lot of money for dealing with that, because that's drama TV. That's what the world likes to watch. They just don't like to, obviously. I thought, oh yeah, I like to watch this. I just don't want to live it again. Like, I've lived that life.
So
It's
yeah, you just, so it's really important for me to get that word out there to other people that have been through this. Hey, I believe you.
Yeah.
I do believe you. You're not making this up. I
Right.
believe you. The other thing I've come to the conclusion, it's man, taken me decades of being in relationships like that, is that I cannot be a healer in a relationship. And I think a lot of us as empaths and as healers,
Yes.
we are always trying to heal. We're either, if we're not healing, we're dying.
Yeah.
And so we just have this need to heal. And I cannot be in a relationship and be a healer,
Yeah.
because it's just going to end bad, because
Right.
they will suck that energy out of you,
Yeah.
and they will leave you a shell.
Yeah. I
So
love
that's
that you
something I had to learn.
actually I love that you actually said that, because I'm just going to give you I'll be vulnerable and tell you my own experience with this too, because I'm now in a healthy relationship. And I always tell people, it doesn't mean that, people that are listening, or anybody that has been in a toxic relationship, or a relationship that has, they needed to heal, from, I should say. Because it doesn't necessarily have to be like completely like abusive and toxic. They don't have to mentally, emotionally, and, hurt you. But I
Right.
had all of it. And I thought that if I just found the person that wasn't so toxic, that it would be easier. And now that I'm in a healthy relationship, it is so much harder. And people are like, I don't understand, because other people, clients have told me this, that it's so hard. I said, because we're conditioned to a certain thing. It's generational. It's how our parents were. It's how their parents were. You come with, generational trauma, or just trauma in general. Like, everybody has something that they're healing from.
Right.
And I thought, because I'm this powerful healer, I'm a healer, I've done all this stuff, that it was my job to now help my partner.
Mhm.
So in the beginning of our relationship, it was like, I felt like it's that I started to learn more about trauma, and all the things and boundaries. And I was like, wait a second, I'm still in this triangle trauma. I'm trying to rescue people. I'm trying to be the hero. I'm trying to do this, all while trying to heal myself, still continue to heal myself.
Right.
So we had a conversation. It was probably about, I don't know, 6 months into the relationship. And I was like, look, I can't be your healer. I can't, you're a healer. Like, I can give you advice. I can help you with my experience. You can ask me for my advice, but like, I want to be your partner. I don't want to be your
Right.
healer.
Right.
And I love that you said that, because I didn't even have the awareness that I have to separate that, because healers in relationships can't heal their partners. They can heal
No.
together, but and I
Yes.
said this multiple times to him, like, and he agrees. Like, he was like, you tried to heal me, and I kept telling you, because he's a very conscious male too, that you can't help me. You can't
Right.
heal me. So it's like, I heal separate, you heal separate. And I think that the reason why I feel like I'm talking about this, and you even said it, was that I feel like people that are now healing together in relationships, like, it's it's a healing connection,
Mhm.
feel like they have to save their partner because they're so used to doing that. And it's like, no, you don't. And it's so much easier and so much better when I just focus on myself and he just focuses on himself. Because what will happen is we'll notice that I'll start focusing more on him and he's like, don't focus on me, like, or he'll, have a way of saying, what's going on, like he can tell that are you going through something, or do you need my support in something, or like do you need something like that, because like I might not necessarily even have the awareness to ask, like, hey, I need more attention, or you're not doing this. Or if I speak, if I say, I before, when I would bring up, like you said, something's wrong, I immediately, I still have that, I've healed a lot of trauma, but I still have that, what if he
Oh,
says
yes.
this, or what if he says that? And it's that part of my brain that I have to calm down, right? It's that wounding part of me that
Mhm.
I have to say, but what if he doesn't say that? Just say it. And literally 99% of the time, he is understanding that, he's like, I apologize for making you feel that way. This is why I did this. And it's more of like, not that gaslighting, like, you're not doing
Right.
that, all that stuff,
Mhm.
but it's more of like, your feelings are valid. That's not trying to manipulate him, because a lot of times I've noticed, like, a couple of my clients have said, but I tell him how I feel and he tells me that I'm trying to emotionally manipulate him. I said, well, there is just a breakdown of communication.
Right.
Maybe he doesn't have the awareness of, whatever, so it's like, it's constantly like a learning experience. And even for me, like,
Yes.
I always tell people, like, even for me, like, I don't communicate all 100%. Like, I'm not saying I'm the best
Oh.
communicator. Like, the reason why people argue is because I sometimes forget to listen, so it's
Mhm.
like, if you're arguing with your partner, it's because you guys both aren't listening to each other.
Right.
So, like, I always make a conscious effort now to listen more than I'm speaking,
Right.
So,
Mhm.
it's just interesting, and it's like, uh it's very healing. Like, there is very there's a lot of dark times through relationships, but it's like that time that it's really like that aha moment, or let me take a step back and let
Right.
me evaluate this if I don't put myself in it. And it's like,
Mhm.
oh, what advice would I give somebody else? That
Right.
whole thing. Yeah.
And a lot of times I think we stay quiet because we know that, in past relationships, if we spoke up, there would be punishment for that.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult for us sometimes to speak up and say, "Hey, I'm just letting you know, I know maybe you were joking, but that was, that was not cool what you said to me, you know." And so I think that's a part of it. Another misconception I have found is that just because we get in healthy relationships and we think we've healed,
Yeah.
we no,
As
it's
soon
not
as you
done.
think you heal, that's when you go wrong.
That's when we go wrong.
Yeah.
And there will always be some sort of a trigger there,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
so next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, am I making the same mistake? Is this gonna go bad? Is it, and all of a sudden you're in that kind of fight or flight kind of thing. You go from one end of the scale where when you're in a lot of these type of just traumatic relationships where you're doing everything you can to keep it going, you just want to fix it, you just want it to be okay, you just
Yeah.
want it to go on, and you keep trying, and it goes nowhere. True, you end up on the opposite end of the scale where it's like, oh, we have a little problem in a healthy relationship, I don't need this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was actually my 19-year-old daughter. I was telling her about a little bit of not even an argument, just like a disagreement I had with somebody I'm dating, and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just not going to work. And she says, sometimes I get the best advice from my children who have watched all this. She says,
Yeah.
Mom, sometimes people in relationships they disagree, Mom, but that doesn't mean it's bad. And I was like,
Exactly.
holy cow. Holy cow. Here's the 21-year-old giving me advice on
Well, that just goes
relationships.
that just goes to show how amazing of a mom you are, because they've watched all of that. And as much as you probably have guilt or shame from that, but it's like,
Oh, yes.
her to say that is just a representation of, she watched you grow. She knows, she grew herself. She knew what not to do and what to do, watching you
Right,
go through it, right?
right.
So Yeah,
Mhm.
I just had a similar experience about that a couple weeks ago, and I just decided that, you know what, if something's bothering me, I'm just going to say it. And if you get
Yeah.
mad at me, or if it's something that's a you problem, and if I'm triggering you, and I, I say this all the time, I joke with a couple of my friends. I'm like, I literally could walk into a room and people get triggered. I don't even have to say anything. It's like
Yeah.
I'm just like, what is that? Because like I love people. I mean, I need my space from people. I love humanity. You know, I'm
Mhm.
total Aquarius. I love humanity, and I love to serve, but I don't always like to be around people. Like I need to like
Right.
be in my own space. But
Mhm.
I'm like, that kind of blocked me through my journey too, because I always knew that I was that light in the room, and I would pick up everybody's darkness and I would take it on as my own. And I'm like, hey, I was happy when I walked into this room. And now all of a
Right.
sudden, I had to figure out why, like through my journey of like healing the last couple of years, I had to figure out why that was, to understand, oh, so I can see people deeply and they can't hide from me. So I can kind of pick up on their whatever.
Exactly.
So
That's
it's like,
man, you just hit that nail right on that head. That's exactly what it is.
yeah,
You can see them. You
yeah,
can see them. And
yeah,
people are threatened by that.
yeah.
Yes.
And it's like
Mhm.
now I had to kind of turn that into like a superpower. Now it's like, how can I, like what can I say for them to be seen? Because it could be as simple, like you said, I believe you. When somebody tells me to this day, I believe you, I don't say things for people to believe me. I say things because it's channeled, or maybe they need to hear it, or maybe they don't need to hear it.
Right.
Don't take it. If it doesn't resonate, I always tell people, I don't know if you need to hear this, but I'm not why, I know why I'm saying this, but I don't understand why. I would tell a whole story, or something will happen. And I'm like, why am I talking about this? This is so weird. And it's like in sessions too.
Hmm.
And then they're like, oh, well, this happened. And that makes sense of that's why. And I was like, oh, okay. So it's like, I don't necessarily understand why I'm saying things, but usually the person that's listening, or the person that has came to me for advice or something, they needed to hear that. And it could just be like, I appreciate you, or I see you, or I'm
Right.
proud of you, or something like that, like some type of little praise. Like I have a 4.5 year
Hmm.
old daughter, and like you said, she teaches me more about myself than I could ever teach anybody, I feel like, because
Yes.
it's that emotional resilience, and that's that, understanding emotion and consciously, people tell me all the time, they say, oh, your daughter's so loud, and I was like, she's her authentic self. I will not
Right.
put generational trauma onto her
That's
because she's
right.
loud. I'm sorry, maybe go heal your generational trauma. I don't know, like I don't say that, but I'm thinking that, like, okay, maybe,
You're
okay, my
thinking it.
daughter's loud, I'm really loud, and so what are you trying to say?
What are you gonna do? Right. What are you gonna do? That's
Yeah,
who she is.
yeah, so yeah, I love that.
That's
So,
beautiful.
so from your experience, like going back to, when you like the conventional pharmaceutical approach, what do you feel is like the key difference to the holistic healing methods that you do now to that conventional pharmaceutical approach?
Well, I'd like to think that, pharmaceuticals, Western medicine, is appropriate most times for acute situations. You break a leg and you might need pain medication or an anti-inflammatory. You get a urinary tract infection, you're going to need an antibiotic. I think for a lot of our chronic issues, I think probably if we take a more holistic approach, like, our diet, our exercise, meditation, mindfulness training, I think that's going to help us go a long way. I mean, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia probably just about 30 years ago. I don't take any medication other than maybe if I get a little bit of a flare up, I might take some sort of maybe an antihistamine to help me get into a deeper sleep,
Yeah,
or I'll take an anti-inflammatory, leave or something like that for any kind of pain. But I think a lot of it is really mind over matter, and fibromyalgia clients really are difficult clients when it comes to coaching, because you really have to change that mindset of, the pain is real. Because people always say, well, are you saying I'm making this? I'm not saying you're making your pain up. Your pain is real. It's
yeah,
real,
yeah,
but your brain is taking that in. Now, what happens when you tell your pain, oh, yes, I acknowledge you, you're real. Now let's move on a little bit. a lot of times that pain will lessen. It's like when you get up in the morning, you kind of feel like crap and you're like, well, I got to go in and get to work. A lot of times when you get into work, you're distracted and you feel better.
Right.
So for a lot of fibro patients, I always suggest that they get out there and get that exercise in. I believe that the brain can reset the pain levels. I know my daughter was diagnosed with fibromyalgia when she was 16. And that was over at CHOP, over in Philly Children's Hospital.
Yeah.
They have a program over there that has over a 95% success rate. It involves no medication. They will not give medication to these children. What they do is they get them in a program of extreme physical exercise 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. And what they have found is that their brain resets the pain level. And
Right.
there's, like I said, over 90. Well, if we can do that to children, why aren't we doing that with adults? You
Right.
know? And so
Right.
I always question that. And so I feel that, my being active, me walking, me running, it has reset my pain levels
Right.
so that I'm not having that fibromyalgia pain that I used to have. We can rewire our brains. We
Yeah.
have the ability to have neuroplasticity. We can rewire the brain. And certainly when it comes to pain, we can do that.
Yeah. I was going to say too, speaking about that too, is I've noticed myself, not that I have fibromyalgia, but
Mhm.
I notice myself when I don't do yoga, I'm not doing meditation, or I'm not moving my body, or I'm not, even if it's just simply sitting in the grass or being outside in nature, grounding like your energy, or grounding your energy. Like
Right.
if I'm too much in my head, like I just feel so, it's like chaos constantly. It's like
Yes.
I'm like I'm an overthinker. I can overthink things. Like I have
Sure.
my moments, and my moments of like, going back to how I used to be, but it's like it's that repetitive, like, why am I here? Like,
Right.
what's being shown to me that I need to, like, am I, it's not even like, these people that say, I've been here before. It's like that deeper layer of like, okay, so like maybe you need to understand a deeper layer of this. It's like, cause you can't, if you have multifaceted trauma like I
Mhm.
do, and I'm sure you do too, you can't just heal one layer. And it's like, and I say this for all of the
Right.
people that I'm sure listening to this or will listen to this, you know, they can resonate with this, because I didn't even, when somebody told me I had CTP, CT, CTPSD,
Right.
I was like, what is that? I was like, I thought I just had PTSD, not
Right.
CTPTSD. I can't even say it. um, and I was like, well, yeah. And then I kind of told them my experience. It was one of my healers that I had. And she was like, well, yeah. It's like you have a badge this lifetime of like having all this experience with trauma. And I was like, okay, but like I don't speak about it. It's just an experience I had that I now can help somebody else with, right? It's not something that I broadcast or whatever, but it's like, but it's gave me the ability and that, authority in the world to speak about it, because like I've had different experiences. And she was like, that's all it is. And I was like, okay. So it's like, are you going to use your trauma to hold you back, or are you going to use it to help the next person? And I'm not saying that you have to help millions of people, like
Right.
that you don't have to be a superstar and hold your trauma badge, right? But it's like you have to just kind of speak. And I always tell people you don't have to do anything, actually. You really don't. But I'm just saying, like, your story, and that's pretty much the mission behind the podcast, because it's like I want people to use their voice, because for
Yes.
so long, especially women, it's like you can't use your voice. It's like that constant fear of judgment. And I mean,
Mhm.
here's the thing, and I say this all the time: the world is going to judge you. So let them judge you and say it anyway. Like I always, I always tell people
You're
that.
correct. You're right. Hmm.
And I think a lot of it too is like from, past life stuff. I mean, there's, when somebody told me that, I was like, past life, here, like, I'm like, past life stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm not living in the past. And then it's, of course, learning about that stuff. And I was like, oh, it makes sense. Like, so if you have a
Right.
fear of something, it's coming from just wisdom that you need to know from a past life. And it's like,
Hmm.
once I connected, I feel like full circle moments have came up, and everybody will have them, right? I'm sure you have
Right.
them all the time,
Hmm.
and I feel like that just makes sense of why you had to go through, because here's the thing, if you didn't have to go through your experience, how would you be able to help somebody today? Right. So it's like,
Exactly.
I always think of that. Well, shit, is this going to be an experience that I'm going to have to help somebody with? Like, if,
Right.
and so the way that I look at it from a different perspective, because it's like, okay, I have to go through this, because if I don't go through this, that's as far as my healing goes. And I can't help somebody that has gone through something more,
Right.
because I've never went through something like that. So it's like,
Right.
that's kind of where I always kind of guide people, especially like other entrepreneurs and coaches, that I'm like, well, you're going through this because you have to learn something from it. And if you don't,
Right.
and I was like, and if you don't learn something from it, you will learn it again in a different way.
Oh yeah. 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 You'll just keep repeating something until you finally get it straight.
You're going to get on
That
your
is the
own
truth.
nerves. You're going to be pissed off at yourself, and you're going to be mad
Mhm.
at yourself to the point that you realize you can't be that victim anymore.
Right.
You have to heal through it, so you don't
Well,
have to
and I think we're obligated. I think that's part of our mission here on Earth is we're really obligated to help others by,
yes.
sharing our story and meeting them where they are and pulling
Yeah.
them. And I mean, some of the, things that I just, blow my mind when, especially because we all have doubts. People are like, oh, you really got your shit together. No, I don't have my shit together at all. Okay.
No.
I
No.
struggle. I have doubts.
Yeah.
I have the biggest imposter syndrome going on half of the time,
Yeah.
and but occasionally, I will look over at my fridge where, I keep a little posting, and somebody says, hey, because of you, I left a horrible marriage. I left an abusive marriage because of your videos, because of your book, because of you sharing your story. I
Yeah.
saw I could do it too. And I think we're really obligated as healers and people that have gone through trauma to make sure we can help other people do this.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I always tell people to, and like the people that aren't in the metaphysical world, or they think, so it's funny. I have two different audiences: people that think I'm just insane, but they believe
Mhm.
me. They're like, oh, wait, if I hear something astrology or something, that sounds a little like woo woo, I'm going to
Mhm.
like, they still trust me. And it's like, they don't understand it, but they will come ask me about it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like I always have some answer, I feel like. And if I don't always have the answers, but if I don't have the answers, I'm like, oh, it's like today when we're recording this, I'm like, it's a full moon. So it's like, they're like, okay, so like, what would I expect? And it's just like having like guidance, I feel like, from like what's above so below, that's all it is. Like, so it's like, it's not, it makes sense, like we're just energy, like there's energy around
Right.
us. We
Hmm.
aren't our mind and body, and like, or we aren't our body, we aren't our thoughts, we aren't our mind. Like, that's not what we are. Like, our humanness needs help, but our soul doesn't need help. So it's like, if you're having, I always tell you, if you're having like a block somewhere in your life, in your business, or like self, like doubt, it's self, meaning it's your human. It's the
Right.
body that you're renting with all the emotions and all the shit that comes with it. So it's
Hmm.
so easy. And it's like easy for me too to understand, like, if I'm doing something, if I don't change something, will it affect me? And it's like, no, it's not going to. So like,
Right.
it's not like you're going to die tomorrow. And if you are, you'll be in a different dimension. So it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So it's,
Hmm.
so it's like when you look at it that way, I feel like for me, especially, I feel like when my anxiety gets like lies to me, I know that my anxiety is lying to me. So it's like,
Right.
how can I like calm myself down? How can I make
Right.
my anxiety not lie to me when
Right.
when it feels, because I mean, I have to be honest, like, sure, I've gone through a lot, like I've healed a lot, like I am a very powerful healer, but it doesn't mean that my humanness doesn't get in the way of
Oh
my
yeah.
hope,
Hmm.
because it
Yeah.
just happened a couple weeks ago. It happened a couple days ago. It was like, I'm a very emotional being. Like my whole damn astrology chart is like water, I feel like. So it's like I am just, I people say something nice to me and I'll like cry. And then, so they said something mean to me and I'll cry. It's, I mean, not that dramatic, but like it just, that's just how it is. Like I'm
Right.
very emotionally intelligent when it comes to all of that. So,
Hmm.
I always tell people like it's okay to cry, because when I was a kid, I was too sensitive. I cried all the time.
Right.
You
There's
know,
something wrong with you.
yeah,
Right.
there's something wrong
Hmm.
with you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there is nothing wrong with
No.
me. There's everything. There's a lot wrong with you, but I'm not going to place that judgment back on
Mhm.
you. But when people say that to me, or even in like, if especially entrepreneurs in like the online space, it's just so mean. Like people are just so judgmental. And I always say,
Mhm.
like when they say kindness really matters, that's when you keep your energy, because it's like, you know what, if they know, if you are that enlightened and a spiritual being, you would know that any reflection that you're reflecting back or they're reflecting onto you is just a representation of themselves. And like
Correct.
that always sticks in my head. So when I'm like, I could, it's those thoughts that come in. It's like, oh, say something back. Oh, defend yourself. Oh, do
Right.
this. And it's just like, why?
Right. Right.
Why? I
Yeah,
don't need
you're
to
you're
anymore.
you're on
You
right.
know,
You're
I
on your
need to anymore.
spiritual journey.
Yeah,
So, and your journey is not their journey.
right,
So, yeah, you just, I tell people just stay your path. Stay on your path.
right,
Don't worry about
right.
what they're saying because that's not their path. They weren't on that conference call, when you got your calling, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. I love that.
So,
That
yeah,
conference
so
call.
just they were on the conference call.
I love that. So, before we wrap up, how can people get a hold of you? And also, can you tell us about the book? What is the book title that you became an author in?
Okay, the book is called Reclaiming Your Moxie, A
Okay.
Guide to Healing Your Sassy Self.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, so Moxie is all about that little flame that we're born with, that beautiful bright flame. And as we grow, that flame tends to dim because of employment issues or divorce, relationships, drug abuse. And it just ends up so tiny. So the book is really about how to reclaim that. And it kind of takes you on a path. And I have, chapters about gratitude and letting go of pain and anger and anxiety and badges of life, things that, the badges we get that we really
Yeah,
should be proud of. Hey, I overcame this,
100%.
and so it's got a lot of exercises in there for you to do. And
Oh,
so it's on ebook, it's in print, and I also have an audio book. So
I was
I
gonna say, I'll make
absolutely
sure
love
that all of those links are in the description box so people can get that book, because I
it. Okay.
that book sounds very interesting. So do
Yeah.
you have any also, how can people get a hold of you on social media?
Oh, well, I mean, I've got my Facebook page, Karen Carlucci Wahner. I also have a group, Reclaiming Your Moxie, a group for healing your sassy self.
Okay.
That's a private group for people that are struggling, having a hard time. They just want to hop in there. It's just me kind of giving some, videos and talking to people about stuff, stuff that comes to me. KarenWahner.com. You can get me my webpage there. So I'm just kind of starting to get out. My kids say I'm horrible when it comes to social media. So I'm starting to kind of get more into the social media groove.
Yeah, no, social media. I mean, what, I'm 35, and it's just like social media pisses me off because like one day it's the algorithm, the next it's like this. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Whoever's supposed to see this and nobody sees this and nobody sees it. I'm like, whoever's supposed to see this is going to see it. So it's like I'm
Yes.
tired of like, I mean, like it's just like scrolling reels. Like I always tell people, it's like it's their highlight reel. Me, it's different for if you're an entrepreneur or you or me or anybody other healer, light
Mhm.
worker, somebody that, does this, like this is their purpose. It's
Right.
different. It's we're being vulnerable in a space that we're sharing our experiences and telling our story to help other people.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm just sharing pictures of, I do like to share pictures of my daughter. It's just like random, like, random things. I like share that too. But yeah, it's just like, people are like, I could never do what you do. Why not? What do you mean? Why not? I'm not,
Wish you
what,
could.
what? I'm like, well, let me show you. I can show you how to do it.
Right.
let me show
Right. And the
you.
thing is, I mean, when I do energy work on people, I tell them, I said, we're all healers. We can all do it.
Yeah,
We can
every
we
single
can all
person,
do this.
every single person.
And I think a lot of times, when I talk to people who are very anxious or depressed, I think a lot of times it's because they haven't discovered that they're really healers, you know, you
Yeah,
know, and they haven't discovered their purpose of healing others. Because when you heal others, it's real hard to get into a state of depression. It's real hard to kind of sit around and feel bad for yourself when you're in the process of trying to help others heal, you
right,
know?
right. Yeah, I mean, there's always, I was gonna say, like when I first started, I healed myself first. Obviously, you have to heal yourself first, and then you can, heal others. But
Mhm.
or help others, I should say. You don't heal others, you help others heal. But
Right.
when I started that, I'm telling you, my intrusive thoughts can be very powerful.
Mhm.
Like, what if I just stop doing this? What if I just do, like, what if I just go back to my old life? Like, I could potentially do that, like it's a conscious awareness every single day to be better than I was yesterday.
Right.
But it's like, there's just like, yeah, I have anxiety. Sometimes I feel like, depressed. Not saying I have depression. I mean, I
Right.
did, but
Mhm.
it's like, I don't feel myself. And it's just like, I just tell myself, it's okay to not feel okay. Like,
Absolutely.
now if it happens consecutively, maybe 2 days, I feel miserable and I'm like, oh, God, I just like, this just sucks. Like, everything sucks.
Mhm.
I'm miserable and whatever. Then I might just ask either my mentor or healer, like, hey, can you do some energy work on me? Because I mean, I do energy work. We know you do energy work on yourself too, but it's not as powerful. And you're biased to not see that block
Sure.
or whatever
Mhm.
called out or whatever, or triggered or whatever. And I don't necessarily like to be triggered, but like if it's somebody like I'm in a session with, or like I feel triggered, I understand that that trigger is something I need to work on. So it's
Right.
like people always tell me I don't like to be triggered all the time. Okay, well then stop, then work on the trigger that you keep getting triggered over.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I don't,
Right.
to
Yes.
me, I just think of it differently. So I'm like,
Right.
so sometimes, and they're just like, okay, like, how do I do that? I'm like, well, what is the trigger? What's going on?
Let's
So
get
it's like, I thought the world looks at that, like people that are on their healing journey, but I understand it because the planets, I used to blame my whatever's going on in my life on the planets too. I get it. Until I decided I had to fully take responsibility of my own healing. It's not Jupiter's fault that I feel this way, or it's not the moon's fault that I feel this way. You
right.
know what I mean? Like, it's not. It's they're trying to help us. So
Mhm.
I understand when people make jokes about, oh, I can't communicate right because Mercury is in retrograde. I'm like, no,
No.
that is
Right.
now
No.
I understand. It's funny because yes, you will not be able to communicate if you don't communicate already correctly, because Jupiter will or Mercury will show you. So it's like, it's funny that I will make jokes like that. Oh,
Mhm.
you probably don't understand what I'm saying because Mercury is in retrograde. So let me explain it a little bit differently.
Right.
Or let me
Right.
just not explain anything until
Mhm.
we have this period, So it's like always to help you. It's always
Right.
like an awareness to help. And I feel like once I looked at it from that perspective, it was more of like, I didn't feel like I had to blame other people for my shit.
Yeah.
So
Mhm. No, you always have the power. The power is yours. You always have it.
yeah, I was gonna say, and that is a perfect way to end this conversation. I'm like, that is a key takeaway. You always have the power.
Always. Always. Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode with Karen on the Enlightened Misfits podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe. You can leave a review and share with somebody that you feel that will gain knowledge from listening. Make sure you go get her book also. That'll be in the description box. Or if you're looking at this or you're watching this on YouTube, it'll also be there. So stay tuned for more captivating conversations in the future. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next time.